Right. Welcome everybody to episode 5 of our Beyond the Lodge series for hideaways. It's a very exciting episode. We're going to be talking this time around. Having spoken about all our hideaways properties up to now, we've decided to put together a golden safari circuit of our properties in Zimbabwe and Botswana, combining the different essences of each property. So welcome, Garth. Thank you for joining us again.
Thanks, Kim.
So I'm just going to jump straight. I'm going to jump straight into it and ask you, why is this circuit golden? And can you just explain it a little bit to us, especially being excited on the cusp of borders possibly opening? So it's lovely to talk about Zimbabwe, of course, being from there for me, and expeditions into Botswana. So tell us why it's golden.
Sure. So, yeah, we're just eclipsing our president, who's going to be talking after us. So I thought we could get in just before him, and hopefully he's going to bring us some good news that the borders will be opening regionally and internationally. But let's see. Yeah. So why is it golden? You know, there's so many safari destinations in Southern Africa, but other people in different areas in the industry are probably going to kill me for saying this, but if someone's coming out to Africa for 12, 15 days and coming out to Southern Africa, what they want to do is they definitely want to go to Cape Town, they want to do Vic Falls, and then they want to go on safari. So on the safari side, you've got quite a bit of choice. And why we've looked at this area and why we've invested in lodges in the Chobe, not Vic Falls, we don't have our own lodge there. We use a couple of partner lodges there. And Hwange, where we've got our 2 lodges, is that, you know, for many years, I've been in the industry for over 25 years. A lot of our itineraries and that have been based on my own choice and holidays that I've done. And I really do believe in looking at an area where you don't have to do long road transfers, but you can still get incredible diversity between the different places that you go to. And the reason why we've come up with this golden triangle is that firstly is access points. You can fly into Vic Falls, a lovely new airport. Livingston is exactly the same, plus Kasane, and they're all close to each other. So you've got a choice of 3 different airports to fly into, and then multiple airlines once everything opens up again. And then the distances between, so driving from Vic Falls across to Chobe, you know, you're crossing a border, but it's an hour and a half, max 2 hours, depending on border time, to get across to Chobe. And then going from Chobe, you then stay in Botswana and you head south, and there's a small border post called Panamatenga that you cross back over into Zimbabwe, and then that's right at the top, very close to the top of Hwange National Park. But that's also you're looking at an hour and a half, 2 hours with border crossings, and then from our lodge in the north of the park, our new lodge Nantwich, it's the closest lodge to Vic Falls, so it's only an hour and a half back up to Vic Falls. So if you're coming on a 9-day safari, for instance, your transfer times between destinations are short. Actually, on all of the transfers, there's good chance of seeing wildlife. You'll probably definitely see elephant in this region. I mean, it's full of big herds of elephant. But then you maximize your time at the destinations, and they're totally different, from each other.
And I think that what people are looking for is that shorter travel time and longer times at the lodges. So this 9-day itinerary is wonderful because you get to spend time at the 3 different properties with a little Vic Falls, 2 nights at Vic Falls in the beginning as well. And as you say, each property is so distinct. They each sort of wear different hats, as you will. They have their very own unique stamps. And as we go through the chat, we'll see why they're different. So to begin this wonderful golden circuit, we start in Victoria Falls, and we will be staying at Safari Lodge. And in the essence of Beyond the Lodge, we'll be talking to Wendy Bourne. I think she's going to join us now, all the way from Victoria Falls. Hi, Wendy. How are you doing?
Hi, Wendy.
Hi, everybody. Kim,
So,
I'm just going to
yes.
quickly say something here, because I don't know why God put me on this earth, but it was not to do ironing or to speak to a computer screen. But I guess this is what we're all doing now. So I'm starting to talk to myself during the day as well now.
It's good to get out of your comfort zone, Wendy. So we'll see.
Yeah.
I'm sure you have a gin and tonic there to help you along.
Thank you. That's only because of
It is
malaria.
gin
You don't
time.
need to publicize
So Wendy, thank you for joining us from Vic Falls. Obviously, a place very close to my heart. And in the essence of Beyond the Lodge, what I'll be asking you about Safari Lodge is obviously speaking of the property itself, but also the conservation initiatives or the ways that you can get involved with conservation there. So what happens? What activities do you offer beyond the lodge walls?
You know, Kim, first of all, I must just quickly tell you about Vic Falls. You know, this should be our absolutely high season. It should be full of people now, and sadly, because of COVID, it's really absolutely dead. And amazing for the few Zimbabweans that have managed to get in and see the falls with, you know, only a few people there. As Garth said, hopefully things are starting to open up now. You know, Safari Lodge, Dave Glenn, our chairman, he's always been a conservationist. And in fact, when we originally built Safari Lodge, I think we translocated about 2,000 tree saplings while the lodge was being built and then put them back. So the lodge was really built around the landscape. So, you know, we come from an ethos that really is looking after and conserving and enhancing our natural resources. So, you know, that's been a very important part of starting from scratch 25 years ago.
And Wendy, you have your in front of the lodge, you actually have a hide, yes? Can you speak us into the spending time in the hide?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, in front of the lodge, we have that waterhole, and really it's the most integral part of everything. If you look at any of our promotional material, that waterhole is sort of right there, center and in front of you. And that's what makes our property, I just have to quickly punt the property. That's what makes our property so good, is if you're sitting doing nothing, you're looking at the waterhole, and thank goodness for warthogs, baboons, impalas. They all love having their picture taken. Great shot here of the waterhole looking up at Safari Lodge.
That's such a special
actually, just to the opposite side of the elephants is our little Seduli hide. And it takes a minimum of 4, maximum 6 people. It's built like a termite mound, so the animals really aren't aware of you sitting in there. Charles Brightman, who's one of our top professional guides in Zimbabwe, will take you down there. And the good thing about the hide is if there isn't anything going on, remembering we're not in a zoo, so it's not, you know, to order what's happening. You know, if it's a bit quiet, you know, there'll be a dung beetle on the ground, or there'll be a lilac-breasted roller. So it's a great opportunity just to sit quietly and see what's coming along. Obviously, like us, as you just mentioned the fact that I was drinking, you know, the animals are more active at sort of 4 o'clock as they come down to our pub here. So on the whole, our afternoon activity in the hide is wonderful.
I have had many sunset on that deck looking at the Ellies. Sorry, guys.
Wendy, those elephants look like they were photoshopped in. Is that
we are a conservation company. We are not an IT company. Banish that thought immediately.
So speaking about being a conservation company, Wendy, you guys also have another incredible initiative, your vulture culture program, which is something extremely unique, and I've never seen at any other hotel in the world, actually. And you get so up close and personal, and it's such an educational experience about these endangered species. Do you mind speaking us into that a little bit?
Yeah, Kim, you know, Vic Falls is a resort town, and actually, as a resort town, we haven't really ever looked after kids that much. You know, we've all got a swimming pool and, you know, a couple of, interleading rooms and things. So we now understand as a company, we need to be doing things also that children can get involved in. with this vulture culture that happens every day at 1 o'clock, it's a complimentary activity. You know, when we first started doing this many years ago, we would have an average of about 300 vultures coming down. We now have about 100. And so it's so important for us to conserve and look after the vultures. If I sitting here talking about pandas, or everybody's a tree hugger and a bunny lover, they all think they're cute. Obviously, this vulture is not, you know, he's not so attractive and kind of smelly and has a bad reputation. But if it wasn't for vultures, there'd be hectic disease around. So it really is important. So it's about a half an hour activity. Moses or Zulu will, introduce us to the different species of vultures. We do feed them every day. And, you know, you've got to be so careful not to modify wild animal behavior. On a good day, a vulture can eat about 1 kg of food, which is pretty hectic for a bird that size. So we give them, you know, something the size of a prawn. So it really is just an appetizer. But it means that we're bringing them into safer food, but they still have to go out and forage for themselves. So a great activity for birders and for photographers.
And I think for anyone to be educated about and be aware of the ecosystems and how important the vultures are actually to the ecosystem. They do have such a bad rep. And these kind of initiatives really teach people the wholeness of the wild spaces, not just the ellies and the pretty birds. It's about the entirety of the ecosystem.
And often that sort of thing, it's like the good old hyena, you know, gets a bad rap too as being a scavenger. He's a wonderful predator in himself. But Kim, this is a very good activity for kids as well, and it's a learning thing. You know, for me, you know, I was never good sitting in a classroom. If I can go somewhere and it's something I can touch and feel and somebody can tell me. So I think the kids, when they come to Vic Falls, have a fantastic time. And we have a wonderful, you know, Zambezi National Park is a very productive park. So it doesn't always have to be the famous places. So just quickly, I'm sure I'm not allowed to get involved in this, but I'm going to say something. Garth's the circuit, you know, so often people do fly in because they don't have the time, but it's always important to see the landscape. You know, flying in, you get from A to B quickly in that. But as Garth said, you know, it's sort of a two hour transfer. So you can choose to go to sleep, or if I'm ever taking guests out, they know to have their binoculars and their camera in their lap. You never know what we're going to see.
Yeah, it's so true. From Vic Falls to Chobe, which we're going to speak about next. So Wendy and Safari Lodge are our first 2 nights of this wonderful 9-day itinerary. It's very exciting. Thank you for joining us today and explaining what happens beyond your lodge, and keep up the conservation initiatives. It's amazing.
Pleasure, Kim. I'm sure I wanted to tell you a lot more things, but I can see Garth's flapping his hands around, so I guess I'm going to say goodbye for the moment.
So Wendy, actually, I can ask you, what activities are your clients doing in general? I mean, I know often people they hear of Vic Falls and they think, oh, you go and see the falls and that's it. And of course, you've got the wildlife there because you've got the park, which has been improving year in and year out. And then you've got other activities. And what activities would you recommend?
You know, Garth, there's too many, and I know Kim's already trying to stop me. But you know, the most important thing is, sadly, people only go to the falls once. You know, if you go in the morning, you know, it's different. Midday, you've got the rainbows. In the afternoon, you've got the sunset. So for me, one of the most exciting things, and if we have a lot of travel agents on board here, please look and see when full moon is. To see full moon and the lunar eclipse, which is a white rainbow, in the evening, and having seen the colored rainbow in the morning, for me is a lifer.
Fantastic.
There's also, I mean, the Zambezi River is obviously an incredible experience. That place is so special. There's something very spiritual about it. And while you're staying at Safari Lodge, we do also offer a cruise on the Zambezi River on our Zambezi Truth Dhow. Garth, can you speak into the dhow a little bit?
Yeah, so we about a year ago, we brought in 2 traditional handmade dhows from East Africa. Was quite a process getting the permissions and all of that, because the river authorities hadn't seen wooden traditional dhows before. They're used to all the aluminium boats and that. And so we brought these dhows, and they're very intimate. We'll have a maximum of 10, 12 people on at a time. It's dead quiet when you're sailing on the dhow. And we've also tried to do alternative trips, like in the morning, for instance. I mean, most people go for sunset cruises, and that's fantastic time to go on the river, of course. But I mean, for me, I prefer the solitude of the mornings. It's dead quiet. If you look at this picture now, you see how the river is as glossy as anything, because in the mornings you've got less wind that picks up. So it's great just to have the river to oneself. So yeah, it's been a great success. Of course, this year with COVID, there's not much happening, but things will be coming back pretty soon.
And I think if, like seeing the falls is an important thing, but being able to see the falls in the morning perhaps, and then get on the river and sail down towards where the water goes over the waterfall, so you get a different dimension, an idea of how big the river is and how it travels towards the Victoria Falls itself.
Kim, can I just check, Garth, is there a break on this boat of yours if Kim wants us to go so close to the falls?
No, you take your shirt off and you tie a rope to it, and that becomes a water anchor. And if it doesn't work well,
before you cut me off, I just want to say,
turns into a parachute. I'm going to cut you off this time, though, Wendy.
I just want to quickly say, what Garth just mentioned, there were sort of 10 to 12 people. I think that's actually a good selling point. I think people now, with all this COVID and that, are slightly nervous of going into sort of massive crowded places and things. So for me, and also the fact that it is just a quiet experience, there's not engines and things. That's part of Africa for me.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's a really, really beautiful experience. It is like no other. It's very serene and very immersive. You feel very much of the elements. It's lovely.
Yeah.
And she's gone.
Oh, she's gone.
Stan decided it's time.
And he's gone for a refill. Yeah.
So guys, from Vic Falls, we travel, we do a cross-border transfer to Camp Kazuma and Chobe National Park. And that drive itself is a game drive on its own. I mean, you potentially see lion, I've seen giraffe, loads of ellies, because Chobe and Kasane is pretty much an elephant intersection between the national parks. So the drive itself is amazing. And as you say, that access makes it so accessible, so easily accessible to have both of those experiences. Can you tell us about Camp Kazuma, and what is the hat that Camp Kazuma wears? What makes it unique for hideaways?
Well, before we get to Camp Kazuma, so Camp Kazuma is not, when you cross the border from Zimbabwe into Botswana, there's the little town of Kasane, and there's a lot of lodges on the river in Kasane. And what we do is we leave pretty early in the morning from Vic Falls. It takes us about an hour and a half, 2 hours. As you already mentioned, I mean, every time I've driven on that road, you'll see ground hornbill. I've seen wild dog there. Always seeing elephant, giraffe coming through, because you're driving through the park. Then crossing over into Botswana, we actually do a lunchtime cruise on the Chobe River. And we go up the river, and that's a fantastic time to do it. Once again, most traffic on the river is late afternoon for the sunset cruise, and where we do a lunchtime cruise and we cruise into the afternoon, and we do it for a lot longer as well. So we do that first, also on a small boat. So only our boat. We don't just our group would go on the boat, and then from there we leave. And we go down to Camp Kazuma. So Camp Kazuma is on the Kazuma Pan, on the forestry reserve. So it's heading south. This borders Zimbabwe, and it's about an hour's drive max to Camp Kazuma. So Camp Kazuma is an eco lodge, 100% off the grid. It's like touch the earth lightly. It's got an amazing waterhole in front of the lodge. There's elephants throughout the day there. So we're actually on a game corridor between Botswana running into Zimbabwe, and you've got about 40% of the wildlife that's on the front river in Chobe actually comes through that corridor throughout the year and heads into Zimbabwe.
So we had, sorry to cut you off, but we had an amazing conversation with Elephants Without Borders last week about that corridor. It's called the Soloko Plains, and how important that corridor is for the animals and the amount of animals that you see there, which I'll bring a picture up in a little bit when we speak to our next guest. And I think it's important for guests to understand what an animal corridor is, and why it's important to work with organizations such as Elephants Without Borders to monitor the animal migration.
No, for sure.
So it's an amazing spot. There's a lot of game in that.
Definitely. I mean, we're the only lodge in that area, so we do game drives and walks, and we've got these amazing pans. So it's open areas, bordering, and when we go on game drives, we actually drive on the border road. When I say road, it's a gravel 4x4 track overlooking Zimbabwe, where the wildlife obviously don't need passports, so they just pass backwards and forwards. And you've got these big dried out pans with lala palms. And amazing wildlife coming through, and we have it all to ourselves. We never ever see another vehicle on a game drive or on a walk from the lodge.
So talking about touching the earth lightly, our next guest, Adam Fillmore from Air Ventures, has brought a beautiful opportunity to Camp Kazuma in terms of hot air ballooning over the national park and being able to see the sheer size of the national park, to be able to see the animal corridors. Adam, are you there? Here we go.
Adam. How's it, Adam?
Hi, Adam. Welcome. I thought we lost you forever for a second. Thank you for joining us this evening.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me.
So I was just saying that you've given us, Camp Kazuma and Hideaways, the opportunity to share with our guests the experience of floating above the national park and being able to see animals from above and being able to see what animal corridors are. And perhaps you can speak into a little bit more about what is an air ballooning safari. It sounds amazing.
Yeah, sure. So, we got all the paperwork done and have managed to fly in our concession, or the concession known as the Soloko Plains. And it's a beautiful area. The reason why it's conducive to flying hot air balloons is that it opens up into the big savanna grassland, which surrounding us is more densely vegetated areas, which isn't conducive to flying hot air balloons. And as you've been speaking about these animal corridors, a lot of animal traffic moving through there, which for a balloon safari is fantastic. Flying in a balloon itself is a great experience. It offers that unhindered freedom. There's no seat belts, there's no windows, you're completely open to everything, and it provides a 360-degree view when you're flying. And the sensation of floating in a hot air balloon is great, but you add these big African open wilderness areas and being able to see game as well at the same time, you've got an unrivaled safari experience, and that's really what this area provides. And the CH5, the Soloko Plains we were flying, and Garth was touching on it earlier, is there's nothing else happening out there. You don't see any game drives, you don't see any other lodges, and it really creates this real wilderness experience for guests. And we're quite excited to share that with our guests. As a balloon, we give the small picture. So when we fly low level, you get to see the animals up closer, the smaller stuff walking around. And then when we ascend into the skies, we give the bigger picture, where people can actually see what this wildlife corridor is all about. And generally, you wouldn't get to experience that sort of thing on the ground. But with us, we're giving that big, wider, or these nice pictures, of what the whole area is all about.
So these are amazing to me. I mean, so this is actually a picture from the Elephants Without Borders aerial view as they're collecting their research from the Soloko Plains. But just the amount of game that you get to see. And I think seeing it from above, I don't know, there's something special about seeing it from above. It gives it, when you're seeing it face on, it doesn't give you the idea of how many they are, how big they are, or the area that they cover, which I think is just incredible.
Yes, definitely. The balloon, it offers a unique perspective. So seeing an elephant from the top is quite unusual. It looks quite different from sitting in a game viewer to floating above it. And the excitement of drifting over the top of a herd of elephants, say zebra, giraffe, wherever it may be, is really exciting in a balloon. And with a balloon, we utilize the wind currents for direction and speed. So every flight is an adventure. It's something different. So for people, it's that sort of romance, time is of no consequence. And it kind of takes you back to those olden safari days where we're forging into this wilderness area. That's what ballooning really provides.
Well, and you're completely on your own. So it is your very own personal moment with nature. And like we say with the Hideaway's vision and ethos is to touch the earth lightly. And I feel like that's the epitome of touching the earth lightly is floating above the national park. I think it's incredible. Garth, have you ever been in one?
No, I was actually just going to ask Adam. No, I haven't. I can imagine I have skydived before, and when your chute opens and suddenly it just becomes quiet. So I imagine in a hot air balloon, it must be very quiet and still. Is that true?
Yes, very, very, very similar. The only time where the silence is broken is when we need to reheat the balloon to put the hot air in to maintain level flight or ascend or descend. But otherwise, it's like that. It's totally quiet. And, you can engage your senses. You can smell the bush around you. You can hear the animals moving below you. So it's a real, and that floating, it's a sensation you've got to experience for yourself. So, Garth, I'm coming up to do some more test flying shortly. So join me.
Yeah, I'll be
I definitely will.
in Zoom in December. So if you need another person to test run.
we just need the borders open. I've already been looking because I'm down in Cape Town now, and I thought, how can I drive up? And it's like a 26-hour drive from here up to Nantwich. But I can't wait to do it. If there's no flights going, then I'm driving. I need to get back up there.
Drive so we can fly.
It's worth the drive. Definitely
Adam,
worth the drive.
You spoke about Africa is, I asked you in an earlier interview, your word for Africa, and you said it was spiritual. And I feel like being up in a hot air balloon, like you say, engaging with the smells and the sounds of nature is a very spiritual experience. And then it's topped off with champagne.
That's why I got into ballooning and started drinking at 7 o'clock in the morning.
All right. That's also very
but coming back to your original point, spiritual. So I think with being in Africa, and especially going into these wilderness areas, it's good for the soul. It feeds the soul. Reconnecting with earth, and wilderness. I think it slows you down. And ballooning certainly does that. It is a very light experience. We can operate in an area, and tomorrow we can leave the area and it will be exactly as it was before we arrived. And ballooning is using nothing other than the natural elements, of wind, heat, and so on. And even our baskets are just made of wicker. It's all very traditional. And I think we can get back to that spiritual feeling, which getting out in the wilderness areas provides you. Standing there also on the ground. Sometimes just take off your shoes and feel the earth below your feet. Sorry, I'm getting off track here a bit, but that's what these wilderness areas are all about. And I think we provide a lot of that in ballooning. That once you've landed, it's the elation on people's faces of that experience that I've just had. It is almost an spiritual experience, yeah.
And I think as people go back into travel and as the world sort of opens up again, they're definitely going to be looking at activities that are impactful to the wellness and of your soul, but don't impact the land or the environment in any negative way. So the air ballooning seems like a beautiful one to fulfill all those requirements of reconnecting in the wilderness.
Yeah, definitely.
So,
can I ask a quick question, Kim, for Adam? Adam, first, well, there's a couple, but how many people do you take on a balloon? I'm presuming you have different size baskets. And then also, are you generally flying first thing in the morning, is my presumption?
Yeah, so we're going to start the operation off with an 8-passenger balloon. So it's 2 passengers to a compartment, pilot standing in the middle of the balloon. So it's quite intimate. It's nice one-on-one interaction with the pilots. You've got unhindered views from your compartment, which is really what we wanted to give passengers, that exclusive experience when flying with us. And yeah, it's early morning, so we fly with sunrise, and it's sort of with your Dow description earlier is we need those calm, cool conditions for flying the balloons. We don't want wind and so on. We're very reliant on good weather conditions. So it's early morning, so we sell it that you get to see the sunrise, but it's the safest time of day to fly. But that in itself is an experience. We usually take off 5 to 10 minutes prior to sunrise. And with Botswana being flat, you get to see that sun breaking that horizon, which is quite incredible.
Magic.
Really an experience.
Way to start the day.
Yeah, definitely.
And then final question, do we all have to wear masks?
So what we've done to try and assist with that is that we can't do social distancing on the balloon, but what we've done is we've implemented transparent dividers between passenger compartments to help with social separation and to allow people to be able to take off their masks. And if they want to take a photo, they don't need to have a mask on. They can have nice photos of themselves flying, above the African landscape. So that's what we've done to assist with that.
That's so wonderful to hear, Adam, because yesterday I was listening to a talk about airlines and borders opening and stuff, and someone asked, is Africa travel ready? And that is a perfect example of being travel ready. We're ready to receive guests at hotels and in activities, that kind of activity. You're prepared for guests to return, and that's really great to hear. Great,
fantastic idea, Adam.
Yeah, definitely. You really want your passengers to be as comfortable as possible, and that extra peace of mind, which I think if you can push that as much as possible, you'll have happy guests at the end of the day. Yeah,
that's really, really great. There is one more question here from someone in our comments asking if you ever fly at night. Have you ever done a night flight? Is that possible?
No. So we have an operation in South Africa. That's where our main operation is, and then we branched out into Botswana, into the Okavango Delta, and now into the Chobe region. And in South Africa, there's no possibility of flying in the night because you can't see power lines, and there's a lot of power lines in South Africa, so you can't do that. However, in Botswana, one thing we would love to try one day is to do a full moon flight in the Magadi Pans. Take off just prior to the moon rising, which I think would be absolutely phenomenal, as there you don't have a worry about power lines and so on. So maybe we'll achieve that one day.
Oh, well, let us know. Keep us updated.
Yeah,
okay.
Will do.
Thanks so much, Adam. We are going to move on to the next part of our itinerary, but it was wonderful to talk to you and very excited for that sunrise balloon tour in December.
Thank you. I look forward to seeing you guys on board.
Thanks,
Great
Adam.
stuff. Thanks, Adam.
Okay, so guys, then from Camp Kazuma, we go through the Panamatenga borders back into Zimbabwe. So we're going through a different border post. I've never actually done it that way. So you're going to have to explain that access route.
Sure. So we at Camp Kazuma, we're about 20 minutes north of the Panamatenga border post. And Panamatenga is a small little town. There's a fuel station. You can get your car tires fixed, and there's one or two little shops where you can buy the essentials. And the border post is, I love the Panamatenga border post. It's old school, small little border post. They don't have a lot of traffic. You can see in the book there's like, there's like 5-6 vehicles crossing over. No commercial vehicles can cross over on that routing. And you're crossing straight over into the Matete area. And when you cross over into Zimbabwe, literally you game driving from there all the way to Nantwich. I mean, on that road, I see elephants every time. You can see roan, sable, lion. I've seen on a couple of occasions. There's one little area where there's a river that you cross, and a whole lot of the lana palms, and the lions seem to love that area. So we cross over, and it's really an hour and a half to 2 hours from camp to camp. And then you're arriving at a totally different setting to Camp Kazuma. Nantwich used to be an old parks, self-catering units, and then it went into disrepair for a good 10 years. It's overlooking this massive big dam at Nantwich, so we've got water throughout the year there, and we have views south and north and west from the different buildings that we have at Nantwich. And we've totally refurbed it. It's now a luxury eco lodge. We have 9 rooms. We have 2 family suites. We have a honeymoon suite as well. And the area is it's quite rocky and hilly. And then with a massive big open plain in front of us from the pool area and the deck, you've got these huge plains where you've got all the game out there that you're seeing every time that you're on the actual deck. So it's very, very, very unique. And there's a lot of history as well. From Robbins, that's down the road. There used to be farms, but the guys they were actually conservationists before their time. And they had all the wildlife that they looked after. There was no hunting in that part of the park, or when it was farms. And then it was ceded to Zimbabwe or Rhodesia back in those days. Mm-hmm. And now it's part of Hwange National Park.
So what I understand about the hat that Nantwich wears, which is different to the Camp Kazuma property, is it's much more of an immersive and sort of hands-on educational lodge experience where you spend a lot of time with your guide, walking around, going on walking safaris for one. It specializes in those walking safaris with your guide, and then just spending time with him, speaking with him, learning a lot about the area, learning a lot about the history of the area. As you say, it's quite a historical spot. As well as getting involved in some of the cooking, like trying your culinary hand at, I think, a bush breakfast or something like that, which is a lovely different way to be in a space to really get involved in the different activities.
Yeah, we've tried to get the clients really involved. So even when you arrive, we have welcome drinks, and you have a choice of different herbs and whatnot and drinks that you can make your own drink. In our main area, we have an open planned restaurant area. So you're seeing the cooks cook, and you can interact with them and ask them and whatnot. So that's what the theme that we've tried to bring through at Nantwich. It's quite different in that our units are all quite spread around this hill overlooking the big dam. And the main area is down low on the dam. We've got, as I mentioned, we've got water throughout the year there, which is, Hwange National Park traditionally doesn't have a lot of natural water. This, of course, is natural water, but it's been dammed up. But what we have in the north and around Hwange with the hills and that is we've got a lot of natural springs. So we don't have a lot of boreholes that are pumping water. You've got your natural springs that run throughout the year, and we've got the heaviest population of cats in the park. I mean, last weekend we had clients stay there. They saw lion on 3 occasions, and they saw a leopard as well. We've got 3 cheetah on the plains below us that we often see. So we've got huge herds of buffalo coming through. They can be 800 to 1,000 strong, and that's why we've got so many lion. The lion are always following the buffalo around.
So just in terms of, and I know it's coming up soon, and I know Tony Park, the author, loves to come down for the game count that's happening in Hwange soon. and it's obviously a prolific area for wildlife, and therefore awesome for the game count experience as well. So just watching our time a little bit, we've got to move on to our next property and our final guest. We're moving on to Elephant's Eye. So Elephant's Eye is in the north of Hwange, on the border of the national park in its own concession. And the unique aspect of Elephant's Eye is, as well as the game side, there's more of a cultural and community possibility of experiencing time with local Zimbabweans and getting involved in some of the community initiatives. But before we talk about that, I would like to invite Terry from DSA Vacations to the screen.
Hi there.
Hi Terry, how you doing?
How's it, Terry? How's it going?
Good, and you guys?
Welcome
Yeah,
all the way.
not too bad.
Can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for joining us today. We're just about to talk about Elephant's Eye, our final property in our Golden Safari circuit. And as an agent in the industry, as well as having visited Elephant's Eye with your family, we were just wondering if you could speak into your experience there and what you remember most about your time there with your family.
Sure, yeah. So I was there about 1.5 years ago. Interesting, I'd been to Hwange, gosh, in 1986. That was the last time I'd actually been in Hwange. I was there on a 6-week trip around Zimbabwe in a Land Rover. So my memories of Hwange were pretty vivid, and I'll get into them. But my trip 1.5 years ago was with my wife and 3 kids. And we had actually decided to spend a week up in Zimbabwe, 4 days at Vic Falls and then 3 days down at Hwange. And, you know, you were talking earlier about Vic Falls and Victoria Falls Safari Lodge. We did stay there. And we took the road route from Vic Falls Safari Lodge to Elephant's Eye. And I didn't realize how close it was. It was only a 2.5-hour drive. It was a fun drive. Even though my family and I have been to Africa many times, we're typical tourists. We stopped at everything, every baobab tree, every termite hill.
That's the fun thing about a road trip, hey?
Right.
Yeah.
So we enjoyed that, where a lot of people go, oh, transfer. No, it was a great transfer. The lodge surprised me. And maybe I was thinking back in my old Hwange days when I stayed at a campground.
Must have changed a lot.
Yeah. So coming up to the lodge, I was like, wow, there is some luxury out in Hwange. The neatest thing for us and the kids were the stilted suites. That was incredible. And then also the proximity, of the lodge right next to Hwange. Elephant's Eye has a watering hole, which is superb. They were talking earlier about the watering hole at Vic Falls Safari Lodge. Well, this was a very different watering hole. Seemed a lot wilder. So now my kids have got to see 2 different watering holes. Property is big, expansive. The staff were extremely friendly and engaging with my kids. My kids were all, 8, 13 and 15 at the time. So the oldest being a teenager, she wasn't bored, and the youngest wanting to do things all the time. It was great. Just on the property, the manager or one of the rangers would take the kids around, show them all the small things that you don't see on a typical game drive. And yeah, Hwange, it has changed. When I was there in 86, my vivid memory was actually being chased by an elephant bull.
Oh, wow. That's terrifying.
Right. So I was, 14 at the time, and we were driving along, and a local villager came running out of the bush. And we're like, what's this guy doing? So we stopped the Land Rover, and we're talking about a closed Land Rover. And all of a sudden, this bull was charging him. So we stopped, opened the back door, and the guy jumped in. And I just remember screaming, telling my dad to go, 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 and we got out of there. So that always stuck with me and always gave me a respect for elephants.
Once you're chased by an elephant, you never forget that feeling. It really does. It
Right.
it makes
Maybe that's why I hadn't gone back to Hwange, because I was nervous. But I love elephants, and Hwange definitely delivers on the elephant population. I can never get sick of them. So it was great just driving along, whether they're at some of the watering spots or just crossing the road. It was great. And again, I camped in Hwange, so this time I was staying at a luxury lodge, and I'd shared with my kids a story of when we were camping in Hwange, that the one night a lion had actually came to the campground and eaten one of the donkeys. So for the next 5 nights, our parents made us light up a big bonfire in the campground just to keep the lion away.
Well, that's fair enough.
Again, when the kids got to Hideways and they saw that their rooms were on stilts, they felt very safe. They weren't going to experience.
You say that though. When I went there last time, there had been a lion kill of a buffalo just at the last chalet. And I remember walking back to my room, even in the day, and being like, is this okay?
Now, but being up on the stilts with that little gate is a little safer. Eh? I don't think he could get in.
It makes you really feel in touch with the wild. Like the possibility of the wild is literally right at your doorstep.
Right.
Or your stilts.
No, I mean it's with the Elephant's Eye, we tend to have the elephants come. They love coming in the afternoon, and as it gets dry season, they usually come around about 4 o'clock, and they'll stay for the whole night. And sometimes we can have a couple of 100 elephants around and in between the chalets, and it's amazing the sounds. They'll break. Like a branch that's quite small, but at nighttime in the dark, it sounds like they're breaking the whole tree down. And it's just amazing up, on stilts while you've got these elephants wandering around and in between you. And I think it's quite scary for people the first time out in the bush, but they're totally safe. And I think it's something that will sit with someone for the rest of their lives, that kind of experience.
Yeah, that sound gets into your bones almost. It's such a beautiful, the sounds of the African bush. Terry, so as an agent, why would you recommend Elephant's Eye to your American clients? What would you?
Yeah, so I think for years, first of all, we've been focused. I've been doing this for 20 years. When you send someone to Southern Africa, it was traditionally Cape Town, Kruger, and then visit Vic Falls for 2 nights. That's now all changed with access to Hwange and the fact that you can do a safari in Zimbabwe right next to the falls. And logistically, it's close. Remember, if you're staying in South Africa and you go on your safari, you're doing these flights, but if you want to drive from Johannesburg out to Kruger, that's a 5, 6, 7 hour trek. So the nice thing is, you can do a safari in Zimbabwe. You don't have to go to Kruger. The game viewing is good. The big plus is affordability. As we all know, Kruger's great, but the luxury lodges there, the pricing is quite different. So you're looking at a safari experience for half the price up at Hideways or Hwange itself. So that's a big selling point for us, as well as people who've only got, say, 10 days. It's easy to just put Vic Falls and a visit to Hwange on top of Cape Town.
Yeah.
Logistically moving them back through Johannesburg and onto Kruger and back. So that's a plus. The property itself falls right in line with what Americans are after. It's eco-friendly. I remember, I think it's solar powered. I do remember their plastic initiative. There's no plastic there. I think even when we arrived, we had a plastic water bottle in the car and we weren't allowed to take it out and throw it away. So my wife and kids were very impressed with that.
Yeah. It's so great that people's moving towards that eco-conscious and awareness of the environment beyond the lodge.
Yeah.
So when you were there, sorry, Terry, did you experience any of the community initiatives? Did you pop in and see any of your communities?
No, because unfortunately we were only there for 2 days, and I'd actually
So you need more
taken
time.
right. I'd taken my wife and kids to another community initiative up on the Zambezi River, where I made them go work in a vegetable garden with primary school kids. So they had already had that experience. I selfishly, when I got to Elephant's Eye, wanted to see Hwange because I hadn't seen it for 25 years.
Yeah.
So we didn't do any community initiative projects down there, no.
And I think as long as you, on your travel, do experience it in some way, like spending time in that vegetable garden is such a beautiful way to have that impactful travel experience. I'm going to actually, sorry, Garth, I'm going to let you chat. I'm just going to pull up some pictures.
Sure.
I'm going to find some pictures here of our community initiatives. So you may take the floor. Sorry, give me a second. Okay, can the tech fairy just pull up the pictures now? Because I have a picture of our tented chalets as well, which we were talking about. Are you able to see them?
Yes.
Okay, so I mean, if you can imagine what Garth was saying, and you can actually see on the right of this tree here, where an ellie is pulled off the bark, so how close they do get to the chalets, which is so amazing. So this is part of our community initiative. So from Elephant's Eye, you go into Dete Village, where you meet with a couple of projects that Hideaway supports through their Grow Africa Foundation. And one of these being the Tandanani Women's Sewing Club, who make things that are sold in the lodge, and they also make reusable sanitary wear for the Dingani girls at Dingani Primary. So supporting these initiatives is so important. And with tourism at a pause, these ladies have been suffering quite a bit. So we're really looking forward to you sending us some more clients, Terry, from the States.
Yeah, and by the way, Kim, that was our biggest expense, was the shopping.
My
wife bought a lot of those products.
Because they're so beautiful and they're all handmade. I mean, if you look at this one, these ladies make these beads from paper, and they're just sitting in a rural village, and they spend all day beading. And then it's sold at the lodge. So I'm so glad to hear that you bought some. Thanks, Chris. Okay, sorry, Garth, I interrupted you there. You may continue.
Terry, I actually just wanted to talk a little bit to the changes that we've had since you were there. Of course, we are, our concession at Elephant's Eye is on forestry land. So how it works in Zimbabwe, you have your national parks, and then you have this ring of forestry land around the national park. So there's no fences between us and the national park, but we put in our own direct gate straight from our concession straight onto Hwange National Park. So we don't have to, remember with you would have gone through our concession, then onto a little strip road, and then over the railway line to main camp. Well, we now go straight into the park. So it's taken off about 20 minutes off the drive to get into the park.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. And then, of course, we now have the new lodge Nantwich, which we didn't have at the time that you came to visit us at Elephant's Eye. What also has happened in the park is the road network has been improved throughout the whole park. Hwange, of course, is the same size as Belgium or Wales, so it's a massive national park, and had got into disrepair. So the road network now is vastly improved, and all the old hides have been fixed up. So for me, what's magical about staying at both Nantwich and Elephant's Eye, the fact that both properties are so different, it's also the drive. We take a full day driving down from Nantwich in the north down to Elephant's Eye, which is close to main camp, in the center of Hwange. And that's, for me, the highlight of the actual trip, is that full day. You spoke about Kruger earlier on. I mean, last year I was there with my family. For a full day, we saw one other vehicle in the day. You're not going to have that experience, I think, in any other national park around. Yeah, where you really feel that you own the place for the time that you're there.
Which I think speaks back to the reason why this circuit and this itinerary is golden, because you do have a lot of exclusivity and a lot of time to yourself in the wild spaces. Terry, we're running out of time, so I'm going to have to say thank you and goodbye. It was lovely having you chat to us about your experiences in Elephant's Eye, and hopefully we get to see you there soon.
Perfect. Thanks, guys.
Thanks a lot, Terry.
Yeah.
So as we wrap up, I just want to speak back into the circuit and how wonderful it is that we can spend quite a lot of time but exploring smaller areas with access to both Zimbabwe and Botswana. So those who are listening, please listen out for the borders being open, and then do to send us an inquiry. Garth is going to speak into actually winning this itinerary. So those who enter, good luck. And Garth, take it away.
Thanks very much, Kim. You know, Kim, one thing we forgot, if anyone's interested to see a live game, is of course we've got a live cam at Camp Kazuma. We'll put up that link. I mean, it's fascinating. You can go. My one son is addicted to it. He's looking at it, you know, every day and always telling me what wildlife that he sees there. So it's great to have that connection in the times when we all can't actually travel and get out there. So yes, we've thanks, Kim. So we've got a competition coming through, which we'll be announcing, I think, tomorrow. So do follow us on Hideaways, and it's a 9-day itinerary, starting in Vic Falls, staying, of course, at the lovely Vic Falls Safari Lodge with the lovely Wendy, who spoke earlier on. Then we head through to Chobe. We do the Chobe. We go onto the river for a boat cruise, and then we down to Camp Kazuma, and we do the activities there. Adam has also donated a flight for 2 on the hot air balloon. Then we head back from there. We head across to Nantwich. Spend a couple of nights at Nantwich. Nantwich is a walking mecca. It's fantastic to get out and walk on that, and seeing some really good wildlife in that area. And then we go through the park. That was what I was mentioning earlier on. That's personally my favorite day. And then we head down to Elephant's Eye, which is a different design totally to our other 2 lodges. And also there's a lot of cultural aspects. I think you mentioned Dingani School that we support, plus a couple of other programs. There's a little town called Dete, about 10 kilometers away from us. And so we do a lot of community work in that area. We've got the Painted Dog Center as well, that we also go and visit. And then after Elephant's Eye, we head back up to Vic Falls. So it seriously is the golden safari circuit. It's my favorite. I did that last year with my family. It's a must. As Terry mentioned earlier on, it's a great to do that. You do a wildlife and we add on Cape Town. And we've also now got direct flights, daily direct flights from Cape Town into Vic Falls or into Livingston. Doesn't really matter which side you fly into because they're so close to each other. And so you don't have to do the leg through Johannesburg up to Vic Falls.
So our competition will be live on our Facebook and Instagram tomorrow. So please follow us so you can find out how to enter to win this amazing itinerary, and then you can tell us how it went. So thank you, Garth, for speaking us through these incredible, different, unique Hideaways properties, and I'll see you tomorrow. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Kim. Thank you, everyone. Have a great evening, morning, wherever you are. Cheers.
Bye.